Well, hey there, geeks. Adam and Michael here getting together, not for an official podcast, not for a bonus podcast. What is this experiment that is coming at you? Well, for those who don't know, Wizards, the Podcast Guide to Comics, is a very scripted podcast, and Michael can attest to this. We decided, what if we gave the geeks kind of a free-form, all the way around conversation? We wanted to see what you guys thought about that. I am proposing, Michael, on the podcast you've often said I'm the king of the transitions, but you are the king
You are the best at it.
You're the king of the tangent. And so I think we should call this podcast, our Tangent Talks, because we will come in.
I like that.
Yeah. And we'll be ready, and then we'll take it from there and see where it goes, whatever our topic is. We could, talk about comics the whole time. We might end up talking about accounting or international travel, but it might be what the geeks have been missing,
What's happening on the Dow right now?
So, what I'm bringing to the table this time around, though, is a topic which is so universal, but it begs the question. We've been doing this podcast for 7 years, so we might be asking people in our lives might be asking, sure, comics are great, but why? And I think we can explore that further. Maybe we work from now back. So, from the perspective of something like, we like comics still in our 40s. Why do we check the news every day on our phones to see what the newest thing is, whether it's, a series, a graphic novel, a variant cover, action figures based on our favorite comics? Like, why are we still engaged? And so, Michael, I'm going to ask you to do some soul searching, okay? Let's start there. Why do comics matter now? Why are comics great to you now?
Ooh, that's a very existential question. I look at it as very much, we're in a world where we're looking for heroes, We're looking for escapism from the stresses of just general life, the hustle and bustle of work and parenting and, bills and whatnot. And to have this outlet of comics or collectibles or superhero movies, it gives us that escape, that dose of nostalgia, and almost maybe that return to innocence in a way, but now with an adult perspective. Like for me, I don't read as much comics as I do buy for the covers now a lot. I really just love the art and, just want to be able to cherish that piece of art. And I like to see where stories go. Where is Batman going next? Where is Captain America going next? What is the next adventure, so to speak? That's kind of my perspective. I mean, we can go much deeper into this, but I think it's a lot of escapism from reality, the joy of that nostalgic vibe. The art is probably a big part of it. And, all we ever hear in life is bad news on the news and whatnot. It's nice to have a story that can be fun and adventurous and uplifting and whatnot.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I can definitely understand that. Yeah, because ultimately it's escapist entertainment that is what we want, for most entertainment. It's not like we can deal with the harsh realities turning left and right everywhere we go, right? Like it's all around us. But where is the fun? Where is the fantasy? And as I've started exploring now, why am I going to the comic shop every Wednesday now? Why have I gotten back into that? What is the fun of that?
Rewind 7 years ago. If it didn't happen before 2005, Adam wasn't reading it.
This is true. I was totally stuck in the past, and here I'm trying to stay a little bit more contemporary. But that's what I realized. Once again, comics are great. They continue to be great. And when I was a kid, it was all about, well, this is all new to me. There's so much about these characters that have existed before I was born, and they're still telling stories about them. And so it was like I could gather that. Now, what's exciting is you're telling me they haven't run out of ideas for these characters. They can always go a new direction. Amazing to me, when with the older, stock of characters, and a lot of, they are playing to our generation right now also, right? There's a lot of nostalgia and throwback titles and bringing back characters, right, that in their, 90s style. And so there's that for me, but also there's so many new ideas to comics as well that I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I love like the Russian roulette of it. It's like each week, what's the new thing that's going to be there? Like, what can I see and take a chance on? And it is going to be just as entertaining. I found out, at least with the past Marvel comics of these last 5 years or so, not for me. But a lot of other stuff, especially on the indie side, has been very, very entertaining. So that's part of it. There is a dopamine hit from, oh, the excitement of what I'm going to find inside when I open it up, or just seeing a new cover of a new comic and be like, that could be something, or doing a little research ahead of time, however I find out about it. But that's why it's mattering to me right now, because that excitement still exists. It's something I could have lost, and I did lose for quite a few years.
Well, look at the two biggest movies of the summer. The Odyssey, with his a mythological story that's been told a million ways over the last 4,000 years, and Spider-Man. How many Spider-Man stories have we seen, and they're still coming up with new ways to tell stories or reimagine older stories? And I think a lot of that has to do with it. Like, it's just, this. I think comic books are a modern mythology in a way. They're gods and monsters and whatever else, and we can take them as big as we want. And I too, like, I don't read a lot of Marvel comics. I think the last one that I really read through was that like vampires one, like blood something or whatever.
Yeah,
And it wasn't that great. I like I like
no.
the covers of Marvel, but I'm not a big reader of the books. I still read a lot of DC stuff when I do, and a lot of indie stuff. Like, I like to find unique kind of things. There's a book that came out, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago called Terminal by Robert
Yes,
Kirkman,
I got
which
that.
everybody's raving about. Yeah, and I haven't read it, but everyone's like, you got to read this thing. I was like, I'll pick it up just to see what it's all about, because everyone's raving about it, and it's got a cool look to it. And I think there's just, for us, like, it's something that I can grab a 22-page comic book and read it in a half an hour, and I'm putting my phone down. I'm not, staring at the same episode of Seinfeld or whatever, and just doing something else.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just say, like, on the Marvel front, like I said, I took a lot of chances for a while when I was doing our Wednesday Rewind show with Mike Schwartz, and we were going in every week, and we were like letting people vote, which books do you want us to read? And they kept like asking us to buy X-Men books and all these other things, and I was just like, none of
Mm.
this is good. Like, this storytelling is just not working for me. And then recently I've grabbed a few. So we had Paul Jenkins on the podcast, and he was promoting his Captain Marvel Dark Past and his new Sentry stories that he was telling.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to support Paul. Thank him for coming on the show. So I have bought all the issues of those. The Sentry wrapped up, and I didn't like it. Like, apologies to Paul, but it's a situation where it's like his bread and butter, right, is psychological, like getting into what's going
Right.
on inside in the mind, the trauma, whatever a superhero is dealing with. And that was fine, but he decided to wrap that up with the death of a pet. So the one of the core plot lines in that is Watchdog, the Sentry's pet, is dying, and his wife is kind of like, well, you have this godly power. Couldn't you keep the dog alive? Couldn't you do something to save him? And he's like, I could, but the problem is, which is the whole premise of it, is, the Sentry has the Void, right? His alter ego, his evil alter
Right.
ego. And so what he is saying is, every time he does a good thing, the Void does the opposite. It does a terrible thing, he's realized. So if he saves this dog, what's the terrible thing that's then going to happen as a result? So he's just, for the good of the world, for the good of their lives, whatever it is. So, like, that's really what's going on. Also, I didn't like his characterizations of the other Marvel Universe characters. Like, the dialogue for Reed Richards did not work for me. I was like, Reed Richards has never talked like this. He's never called somebody Bobby. Like, it's just like all this weird stuff. That's Robert Reynolds as the Sentry, and he calls him Bobby, I believe, in one panel, and I'm just like, you don't call him Bobby. Come on. So there's that. Captain Marvel Dark Past is better, but it's still dealing with her childhood trauma and problems with her family and her dad. And again, a lot of people can relate to all those things. Maybe I just can't. Like the dog thing, I am the undertaker for our dead pets because I don't care. Like they died, we've moved on. Like it's not for me. A
Mm.
little harsh for some people, but that I just am not a pet person.
No,
I value people, not animals. So I'm just like that's where my emotion and
but
energy is.
don't you have pets?
I have too many pets, and I do not emotionally invest in them. I just take care of them. They are not my choice. So I'm just like, fine. But
This
no,
is
but yeah,
why we like each other.
I'm willing to be so extreme. I will tell you this. Here's a little
Listen,
teaser. I mentioned a while back, and here, comics, the magazine came out. I got a letter printed, and I wrote in and said, reading your magazine inspired me to go back and polish up a comic book pitch that I had. But in the
mhm.
meantime, I came up with a new comic book pitch, and it involves how much I think animals should not be getting as much love. We need to give more love to people, but in kind of a comedic and terrible way. Like it's an extreme, over the top, and I'm going to work through it to where I'm
Oh
going to come
Lord.
around on animals by the end of it, I'm sure. But I'm just telling you, like, there is a premise there that I'm working with, and we'll see if it ever gets developed. But you heard it here first. So, anyway, tangent.
That is hilarious. There you go. Tangent number one. But yeah, I keep seeing that Captain Marvel Dark Past, and I look at the covers. The covers look cool, but then I open the inside and I'm just like, meh. And I don't buy it. Like it wasn't grabbing me. Even just the
The only
interiors
reason I
weren't doing it
liked
for me.
it
So I sort of passed
is
on it.
there was a new character. And so rarely it feels like does Marvel introduce new characters now. They're all derivative characters or like
Mhm.
multiversal
Yeah.
characters. So I really like that like the villain is, related to Carol Danvers' past and he's taken on a new persona and he's got armor and all this stuff. So that was just kind of cool. I support that. And the relationship between Carol Danvers and Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, is in it as well, which is really fun. So I like their team up.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Nice. What's your next topic or next question?
Well, so within liking comics, we often talk about how fandoms of all fandoms, like they're just the good, the bad, the negative. I'm curious for you, how much engagement do you like to have with the hardcore fandom? Does that feed your own excitement for comics, being able to have a discourse like this? There's a reason we do this podcast. Or is it more personal for you? You're just like, I enjoy what I like. I don't need to defend it or I don't need to promote it. Like, what is your idea when you're going to talk to other fans? Is that a big part for you of being a comic book reader and lover?
Ooh, that's a good question. This is another good one. A lot of my personal fandom is about the passion of the characters and just you know, all this stuff, right? I do enjoy having conversations with other fans, unless it's in a situation where the person doesn't understand social cues that like the conversation is over kind of thing, and they just keep saying whatever. And then like there's a clear break in the conversation where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go my way now, you go yours, and that person just keeps talking, and you're just like, oh no, this is gonna go on for half an hour, and I'm gonna miss a panel that I wanted to go to. I also, you know, I do comment often on social media posts, but like I made a comment today about the reel you sent me about Spider-Man Brand New Days ending, and I made a comment about like how did he get the money to afford his apartment, and I'm afraid to look at Instagram because it's been blowing up all day with trolls coming at me for my take on how does Peter Parker afford an apartment, and it's like, oh, the toxicity of the trolls is just exhausting at times, and you're just like, please, man, just can't I pose a logical question and not, when it's my close friends like you or Pete or Steven or whatever, I can sit and talk to comics with you guys till we're blue in the face. It's when it's strangers that I'm just like, oh, please, let's end this conversation. Let's move on.
Okay. Yeah, because like for me, for so long, comic books were a solitary experience, you know? Even as a kid, I went to the store, I looked through the back issue bin, I bought my comics, I went to the rack, bought some new comics, paid for them, didn't have conversation with the store owner. That wasn't what I was
Yep.
there for, you know?
Same.
And so it's something where, you know, it's only through really doing the podcast that I have felt the need. I mean, we're on social media, right? And people are excited about Wizard. They're
Yeah.
excited about comics history. And I do want to say, I don't know how we've done it, but our followers on social media and people who, you know, are in our Patreon and all these different groups, our Facebook group, like they are like the most respectful, like well-balanced people. And I'm so grateful
Right?
for that. Like
It's so
it's
bizarre.
amazing, right?
And they're like nice to us. There's very few that like go after us. They're all cool, and I love that. It's when I just follow a random group or make a comment on a random post, and I'm like, oh boy, I just opened up the floodgates to be attacked for this one.
Well, and
But like,
it's
yeah,
I feel like it's TikTok and YouTube is where they really will come after you, you know, and occasionally on Instagram, you
right.
know.
I
But
saw one on our YouTube the other day that was complaining that because I didn't like Lord of the Rings, and it was like, oh god, here we go. Here we go. Gonna get
definitely,
blasted
and
for this one.
I wanted to jump on and say I don't like it either. I've called it out on the podcast before, just
Yep.
not on the clip you pulled.
Listen, you know, it's just like, you know, we're entitled to also not like every artist and their style. Like we're allowed to feel that way, you know, and it's
But
okay.
that's what I
You might
love.
like that artist, you know.
Yeah, it's like if somebody can give me, they don't have to defend themselves. Nobody is required to defend what they like. Sometimes you just like what you like and you can't analyze it, you can't explain it.
Yeah.
But like, I love the conversation with somebody who really can go in depth and say, well, this is why I've always returned to this
Yeah.
creator's work. Or this is like a top tier moment for their career. Like all of that, like, because I want to learn about that and then it can change my opinion. But if somebody just tells me, well, you're an idiot for not liking this guy, I'm like, well, that doesn't get me over to your side.
Yeah. Like, I mean, my, you know, probably 4 favorite cover artists, you know, would be like Carla Cohen, David Nakayama, Stanley Lau, who's Art Germ, and you know, like Mark Brooks. And I love all their art style because it feels like it comes out of the page, like it like pops off the cover, and it just draws me in every single time.
How many of
And
those
they're all
people are
very different art
Zetascope
styles.
artists?
Well, Carla Cohen is. I don't know if the other one, David Nakayama has in the past. Art Germ, I don't think has. I don't think Mark Brooks has yet, though. He's done a lot of Marvel and DC stuff. But another one is Will Jack, who's awesome, who also is another Zetascope guy. But you know, I just like their art because it like jumps off the page. It almost looks lifelike, but also artistic at the same time, like almost like a painting, you know. And I dig that. And you know, listen, that's my style. There are covers that people are like, you don't like this cover, and I'm like, no, it's a little bit too manga for me, and it's not really my style, and you know, I might not buy that sort of a thing. It's okay. It's okay to have those opinions, you know, and
Well, and I want to say
be
the other thing I
entitled to
know
that.
about you and Mike Schwartz and everybody else, like you guys go into a shop and you get to know the employees and you have a
Oh
great
yeah.
conversation. Like, I know the guys at my local shop because I finally put together a pull list, so they know what to pull for me, and they like to, you know, when they see what I get, they're like, "Oh, that was a good choice. Yeah, that's the book of the week." Like they'll comment. We'll have, you know, brief conversations while purchasing. But like, I love how you guys get involved in the full community. I will get there eventually. It's like the Wednesday Warriors that I show up at 10 a.m. with. There's a core group of like 5 of us that we're always out there, but they talk to each other. I kind of wait in my car and then come in right, you know, at 9:59. So I got to get better about that.
No, listen, it's fine. Like you know, whether it's Fourth World Comics or Bailey's Comics or Dewey's in New Jersey or even Midtown Comics, like I know the regular guys that work there all the time. I you know, pop in because funny enough, most of those guys are our age now. They're all our age, so it's like we have similar. You know, the owner of Fourth World Comics, he's got a young family too. We talk about kids and this and that, and you know how he's got a stockpile of books that he can't get to because he's got to, you know, take his kid to whatever, and you know, it's just funny to talk about those sort of things, you know.
All right. Well, here's our next tangent within our structure here. which is, comics
Okay.
are good. I think, not comics are good, comics are great. That's what we're here. We got to get to the superlative there. I don't know. But no, so comics are great because I believe the majority of people who work in the industry are fans, right? This isn't like any old
Oh
job
yeah.
you take. You get into the comic book industry and writing comics because you love the medium. Can creators get jaded? Can it just become, a workaday thing? Sure. But I think that it is wonderful to be involved, in a community and to be absorbing an art form that comes from someone who it really means a lot to them. Now, there might be restrictions from editors, from
Mhm.
publishers, from, the board of trustees, whoever, from these different organizations. But to me, it's so cool that, whether it is a fully independent book that's coming out on Kickstarter that we can support, we have lots of friends that do that, versus, somebody who's working for a big company, but they are given the trust and their pitch is accepted. It's not just like corporate cookie cutter, oh, we have to put this out because the movie's coming out. They're like, I have an idea, can we try it? The fact that that can happen, I think, is great. That somebody's creativity can be brought to life is a wonderful thing about
Mhm.
comics that is so different than television or movies. And again, I'm not saying there aren't auteurs, there aren't people that get, full creative control, but for me, there's something about comics that feels so pure in that way that if you can present it well enough and you pitch it well enough, it becomes your baby to shepherd. And sometimes you're paying it, you're
Right.
paying the way for it to go. But I mean, how do you feel about that when you look at just what is presented and the creativity that is allowed in the comics medium?
Well, I would say 90% of comic creators, artists, writers, inkers, etc., are fans or grew up as fans of comic. Percent believe that. Now, the funny thing that what you used the word that I liked, like the pureness to it is that not, I would say most comic book creators are not going to ever be the Jim Lees or the Todd McFarlanes or the Scott Snyders or Robert Kirkmans of the world, right? They're not going to make millions in this craft. They do this thing because they love this thing, right? And they make a living doing it. We had Jeff Ackland's son on the podcast a while back, and Jeff was an inker forever, is a longtime friend of mine, and did it because he loved it. He wasn't going to be a millionaire doing it or a multimillionaire, but this is what he loved doing. And I think there's a pureness to that, to doing what you love. It's one of those things of you do what you love, you never work a day in your life kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I also think there's a real, people don't realize how much of a collaborative thing comics are, right? It's not just like one writer, one artist, right? You have your artist, and you have your penciler, then you have your inker, then you have your letterer, then you have the colorist, and all these different people working in tangent and creating this vision. So you have your Scott Snyder writing your, absolute Batman, and then you have the artist that does the pencils, and then so on and so forth, until you get that finished book that is now selling for tens of thousands of dollars, the first issue kind of thing. It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
much more
the
collaborative than you believe.
collaboration is kind of the most exciting part sometimes, right? It's that chemistry, it's that alchemy of, can you get the right people together to produce the book either the way it was envisioned or the best version because it's being altered by the back and forth of the creative process involving the editor, involving the artists, and all of that, which is just, again, we hear behind the scenes on movies and things like that. Oh, well, this changed on the day, or this was in the original script, or we had to cut it out, whatever. But there's
Yeah.
just something about comics, I think, also because, I mean, it feels like back in the day when they were on newsstands primarily, and they, they had ads, maybe they had to appeal more to a certain demographic so that the advertisers were happy. But now it's less the case. When you open a comic, it's mostly house ads, right? So they're
Yeah.
almost publishing it like for their own purposes, just because this is a thing we want to keep alive, and we'll promote our other books and go buy our other books too and give us the money just for creating the comic. It's not as, I mean, again, everything's going to be adapted eventually if all goes to plan, right? They get a cartoon, they get a movie, whatever, and they can make merchandise and all that stuff. But it feels to me like the planning, and maybe I just don't understand it, but it seems like these days it's less about advertisers and it's more about, we know who our
Yeah.
audience is. Let's just give them what they want, and they get to support the medium in that way.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, like, going back to where this podcast kind of came from, of, re-examining the 90s comic book boom, right? In the 90s, you couldn't buy a comic book issue that didn't have a Sega Genesis ad in it, or a, Mortal Kombat ad in it, or whatever, a video. Like, you could not find one that did not have an ad inside of it. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a video game ad inside of a comic book. Couldn't remember the last time I've
Yeah,
seen
it's like
a recent one
I
that
buy
has that,
back
right?
issues sometimes now from like 2008 or 2015, and there's still, yeah, there's video game ads, there's things, but nowadays, yeah, it's all just like, no, buy this issue, or here's some preview pages for another comic we want you to go buy.
Yeah. It's very funny you say that. Or yeah, and it's a lot. I see a lot of that now, like a preview of like, oh, these are some other issues or other books you want to buy, and it's usually the last 2-3 pages of the book. You're going to see these little ads promoting the brand that they're of their manufacturer, of the imprint. That's so funny you say that. I never even thought about that till just now. That's funny.
Yeah, it's just been occurring to me, like I said, the last few months, where I'm just like, wow, yeah, it's all house ads. Why is that the case? But somebody can explain to us. We'll get an insider on who's still working in the industry. They can tell us what the business model is at this point. But to me, like, I
What
guess
I do find
that,
interesting, though,
yeah. No, go ahead.
the one thing I do find interesting is, like, now you have things like this, where you have Magic the Gathering doing crossovers with Marvel, and you know you can now not that I'm a Magic the Gathering guy, right? I bought these for somebody else, but you could imagine you could play as Wolverine in a Magic game against some sort of mythological demon, if you will, if you wanted to. If you wanted to build that deck, you could. So wild that that's now a thing. Pretty cool.
Yeah, really. I mean, I mean, let's be honest. They're taking their characters like, where's the money now? Collectible card games, and
Yep.
obviously Wizard was in on
Yeah.
that for years from the ground floor with Inquest. They were the source for that
Yeah.
information for people who wanted all the Magic the Gathering and other news. So they knew back then what everybody knows now, and it's the thing that is like I don't know, how do we want to say it, because it's Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering that keeps most comic book shops in business, right? Like they're all hand in
Oh, I
hand
think
these
so.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it only makes sense.
Yeah. They have to
uh
carry Pokemon. They have to carry Magic cards. Yeah. All that stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I guess like the other thing I wanted to kind of explore, because like when I think about what I love about comics, is I love how crazy comics can get, and the turns that they can take, and the leaps that they will
Mm.
make, and then they could just like abandon it, the next month or a couple months in, they'll just be like, oh, we're
Th-
changing course. Because like think about like a live action TV show. If they want to change, a character's costume, if they were a superhero, like that means they have to hire someone to measure them. They have to like get all the materials, they have to make the costume, they have to do all that, plus then they gotta, okay, but what does that mean to the characters? We gotta rewrite all these scripts, we're changing direction on the series, we gotta build new sets. Like all this stuff is physical, and on the page in a comic they
Yep.
can just do that whenever. And so I love like when we can get weird, like weird takes on some of our favorite characters, right? Or even with just what they're doing with the Absolute books right now. Let's just like make it totally extreme and crazy, and it's working,
Mm.
for the moment. um
Yeah.
but yes. Well, like, what is your thought when you think about like some of the wildest swings in comics that you've enjoyed?
Oof. I mean, well, I'm a big like Elseworlds and What If kind of guy, so I love to see what kind of weird tangent story you can get out of things. What it's funny though is what's cool about comics in that regard is based on the artist, and you can have a somewhat different interpretation of how that character should look. Like Todd McFarlane's version of Spider-Man is very different than John Romita Jr., John Romita Sr.'s version of Spider-Man, like, and both of those can coexist. And some of the biggest swings that I've always enjoyed is, when you I'll use Batman as an example, and I'll go back to Scott Snyder. When Scott Snyder first jumped on Batman and created the Court of Owls, the Court of Owls never existed prior to that, and now it's like, is the next feature the Court of Owls? Like, could that have now become into the mainstream because it took such a big swing on not using the Joker as the first villain that Batman faced in that run of Batman? And that to me was kind of a bold leap to take, and I also liked the time when they did the reimagining of Captain America, and he was Captain Hydra secretly, and like, ooh, what would that have been if he was taken in by Hydra as a child, as opposed to being Captain America, and he's been working secretly in the government for all these decades as a rogue agent. That was a cool idea of a story. Or again with Captain America, when he died and Bucky becomes Captain America, probably my favorite run of that character ever was when Bucky was Captain America, because he was dealing with the guilt of his past, plus living up to the legacy of Steve Rogers and having to balance those kind of things. I love that stuff. That stuff is so believable and real, even though it's a story about superheroes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Again, like, some people that get upset, obviously Wizard hated the Clone Saga. They hated all those, types of swings, but like those are fun in that era. But like currently they will do things like that. Like, I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but like, I love the idea of all new Venom. I don't think the execution is great, but Mary Jane as Venom, like, that is like the coolest idea. Just like, and the mystery and the build up to it, like, is it Luke Cage? Is it this person? Is it this person? Oh, it's MJ after all that time. Like, I think that is so fun, because again, you could take a concept that has grown tired, in my opinion, like Venom, the symbiotes, that is way overblown. They've done way too much with that, and so. Yeah, so the idea that you could say, okay, well, let's take this, and then like, what's Mary Jane been up to? Not a whole lot, so let's put them together, and now it's a whole new adventure. Like, that is a cool idea that you could just do that. You have so much to work with,
Now, here's a funny thing about that, right? So, wasn't Black Widow briefly a Venom character, or like she was tied to Venom too, like about a year or so ago? Oh yeah. Like, yeah, she had some symbiote attached to her. Now, here's a funny thing about Venom, right? And again, going back to the 90s, Venom was, or even late 80s, whenever he debuted, that was a big swing. That was a risk that they took, and it paid off. But yes, I think after the whole King in Black, it kind of got played out a little bit. I'm a little tired of Venom. The problem I have with Venom today is, though they've redesigned the look when he's on a different person, like he's different on Mary Jane, but he still has the spider-esque elements. Venom as a symbiote isn't a spider. He only took the spider mantra because of Spider-Man, and then when he went on Eddie Brock, it kind of mirrored that because of his hatred for Spider-Man. I feel like when the Venom symbiote joins someone else, it should be something else. It doesn't always have to be like a spider-esque kind of a looking character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. Definitely, yeah. I mean, it is, but like I said, like, I still come across to this day in like discount aisles at like Walmart and Target and stuff, like the Venomized, like Pop Vitals and all that kind of
Funko
stuff.
Pops. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just it was just, like I said, they went over the top with it. But when I have another question, tangent. Actually,
sure.
This is one that just came to mind, which is, when did Brian Michael Bendis kind of become irrelevant? And I don't say that, I want to have him on the podcast one of these days, but we're in the era right now where he is literally the biggest name in comics. He's writing so many titles. Ultimate Spider-Man is the biggest thing in the world in 2002. But Bendis goes on to write Avengers, and he does all these things. And then nowadays, like, yeah, he's got his Powers series coming back, but I think that's in preparation for a live action thing that's happening. And then he has like he has a lot of credits on Marvel television and movies and stuff. So it seems like he's doing a lot of, the adaptation stuff. But like for actual comics
Mhm.
writing, like was it after he did Superman and everybody just kind of went, eh? Like that felt like that was like the final thing where it was just like Brian Michael Bendis, kind of like John Byrne. Brian Michael Bendis coming to redefine Superman, and then everybody was like, "No, thank you." Like, is that it? Like,
I,
do you remember any other big
well,
moments for him in the last 15, 10, 20 years? I don't
I,
know.
so I mean, he was riding such a high at Marvel, and then DC offered him, I think it was like $10 million to reimagine Superman and then jump on Justice League. He was supposed to then go on Batman after the fact,
Oh,
but the oh yeah, that was kind of he was supposed to do Superman, Justice League, and then do a run on Batman, and it tanked so hard with the Superman run that I think it kind of everybody got kind of the ick from him, I guess, and they didn't want to buy his books anymore, and he just went into obscurity. And now he's really, I would say, more or less doing a lot of consulting when it comes to these superhero shows and movies and
yeah,
whatnot. And getting the executive producer cred, so to speak, and working on his own, like his Jinx World stuff. But like he's not even writing the newest run of Alias for Jessica Jones anymore.
right.
He's not even. I don't even know if he does anything with Marvel anymore. It's very strange. It's a rapid sort of fall from grace, if you will, and I don't really understand why. Because Superman can't be the only reason. It can't be.
No,
It's
and
sort of
I don't
funny
think it's
in
like
the sense
that
that
people don't like him anymore, but I think what it is like you can only be the hot new thing and the innovative thing for so
for so long,
long. Yeah, and then ultimately
yeah,
what are you're the guy who changed things at a certain point, but now everybody copied you, so now it's the old hat. And so like maybe he just
yeah,
realized that. He's like, it just makes more sense for me to go in a different direction on a producing side, on on another side of the business, with these characters, and maybe he makes a triumphant return someday, and everybody's like, "Oh, Bendis is writing a series again," but maybe he doesn't need that either. He doesn't have anything to prove. I don't know, but I just it's so interesting when
he's
you have certain people who always come back, like J. Michael Straczynski, right? He'll come back and write Spider-Man or whatever, but it's like, but Bendis kind of like, and a bit maybe I'm not plugged in enough, but I don't feel like I've just not seen anything from him for so long.
no, I well, even Jeff Johns, he hasn't written anything in a while, like
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
and
well,
Jeff Johns was
he's a
my
ghost
favorite, like
machine though, but for DC, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like his go, but he's so focused on his own imprint now and his books of like Red Coat and all those different things, that Geiger or whatever. But like, I would love to see him come back and do a new DC Comics run, because it's just Green Lantern and The Flash and Justice League were just some of the best comics I've ever read in my life, and you know I feel like I'm too far behind now to like jump on the Ghost Machine imprint bandwagon to try to catch up with the books that he's got written out there. And I don't I don't have any connection with those characters to really want to dive into them, which is kind of funny.
Well,
But
obviously,
it's again,
myself and
it's like
Mike Schwartz were in a different direction. We were there day one for Ghost Machine, right? So like we've been there since the beginning. That was kind of as close as I ever got to like Image Comics, right? I'm like, oh, here's a new imprint, and I
mm,
could be there from the jump. And so like Geiger's huge for me, and I mean they have a lot of good books. Hyde Street, I really enjoy, and all of that. But yeah, like that's kind of interesting to me though. Also, I wonder how many of these writers and things like that, they realize you can't reclaim your former glory. So every time you come back, it's just a nostalgia play, and they don't want to be a nostalgia act type of thing, where they're just like, it's
right.
not about the money. I want to be creative in a way that matters. And if everybody's just going to be like, oh, you're back and doing this, like, for example, we'll get into this. We talk enough about Rob Liefeld. We have over the years, but he came back with Youngblood, right? He brings Youngblood back. Of course, he's
Yep.
getting all the 90s kids, on his side and excited. I needed to have an opinion, so I bought that full run of these new Youngblood comics, and I read all of them, and I was just
Did
like,
you really?
yeah, he is exactly the same. Not the art. The art is actually different, I think a little bit worse than it was back in the day. but like the storytelling is 100% the same. Like nothing has changed. And Rob Liefeld knows his lane and he just stays in it and
Yeah.
it works for him. He can just keep coming around every couple of years and do a couple things at Marvel and do whatever. And everybody will buy it and he gets his share and he gets the notoriety. And like,
Yeah.
as much flack as he's given us and we've given him, like he's one of those guys that, he's doing a lot of conventions right now, right? I'm seeing all the videos and all the reels on social media of people
Yeah.
meeting him and they're so excited. We got a book signed by him. Somebody else went out and took care of that at San Diego Comic-Con. But it's one of those things where like, you've heard from him how much going to conventions and meeting the creators meant to him. And I like that he's able to kind of give that back. And yeah, he's making a bunch of money off it. But he's at some of these smaller shows, like the Hot Flips that you go to that's kind of near your area. That's where he is like right now. Like, and he's doing that. And it's like, that's great. Like they did a panorama of the room and it's a small convention. There's not a lot going on, but here's Rob Liefeld in the corner meeting all the people that are excited to see him. And I think that's just kind of cool that the people who choose to be a nostalgia act, and then there's the people who are just like, I want to be relevant always. There's so many different lanes you can take as a creative person. So I don't know what I would do, but I'd probably be like, I'll be your nostalgia act. I know you cared about me 30 years ago. That's good. I'll sign this book for you.
Listen, whatever pays the bills, right? It's funny though, but like I still think like when I saw Chris Claremont at New York Comic Con one time, it was like I was in awe. I was like, oh my God, Chris Claremont is like talking to me. And it was just like this weird sort of surreal moment. And I mean, when's the last time Chris Claremont has done anything? But he still has this like gravitas or this legacy behind him that people would just be in awe of him from books from 35 years ago or plus. And, it's just wild to see that kind of
well, and speaking of which,
legacy.
I'm curious just to get your opinion on this, Michael. I'm sure you've heard about it, but this X-Men, I think it's called Elsewhere, that John Byrne had been doing for years, and it finally got collected. Have you heard about this?
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
I have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, bootleg X-Men comics, but now they've essentially been canonized in a way. Everybody's like, I mean, it looks like X-Men, it reads like X-Men from the guy who did X-Men. This is just official, right? Like this is how it could have happened. Like, it's amazing to me that was allowed to happen, and at the same time, it's just kind of like I wonder what the precedent is for that now. Like, are there other creators? Is Ron Mars going to get back with Daryl Banks? Although I think they are sort of, there's something going on. But are they working on something? Secretly do a whole extra Kyle Rayner series. This is what we would have done, and then they can release that now down the line. So stuff like that. Like I would find that so interesting. Like creators, okay, everybody likes what I did over here. Marvel, you want a piece? Are you going to sue me, or do you want a piece? Like maybe that's how it would work. I don't know.
Well, what was the Image comic that when they first launched that the characters literally look like X-Men? Like, I think it's a Jim Lee book.
Wildcats?
Oh God. I don't know if it was Wildcats. Maybe it was Wildcats. No, it wasn't. It was the guy he's got a short kind of character that's like looks like a Wolverine type character in it.
Yeah, well, no, that was Jim. I mean, I think you're talking about, because I mean, it's because Rob Liefeld had Youngblood, he had Brigade, he had all those different. Is it Bloodstrike? I don't know which one you're thinking of. You're thinking of I think the Troll character was like a little guy with the Wolverine hair, but he had a lot of characters with Wolverine hair.
But there's so many characters that are essentially carbon copy of archetypes of other characters.
But I'm saying, like, when you actually take the real characters, because you worked on them and the fans associate that character with you, maybe you even created the character, but it's not in your hands anymore. But then you keep telling those stories literally with the character, and then it somehow gets approved. Like that's a wild thing.
That's a good point. Oh, it's not bothering me because one of the characters looks like the Hulk, like he's a big giant hulking character, but he's purple and green.
Yeah,
what is his name now?
That's Jim Lee's Wildcats. Yeah.
Is it Wildcats? Okay, maybe it's Wildcats.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so funny that like it's just sort of, they're just reimagining the different versions of characters and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I
And
understand
but
that.
to
Yeah, I mean
take,
that's
but it's like how could you not get sued by like that character clearly looks like the Hulk here? It's like come on, come
they
on.
were
But okay,
already mad at them, but no, I mean technically, I guess they figured a way to make it work. The fans knew, the publishers knew, but
yeah.
whatever you gonna do with that. So as we're kind of winding down here, um, when you think about like again like your daily life, okay, what percentage of your brain power do you think is occupied by comics, like on a regular basis, whether it is the toys they inspired, whether it is the next movie coming out, whether it is, something you want to get graded and put on a wall, is this a major part of your day still, even all these years later, since the 90s when you were first diving deep into it?
Ooh, this is a good question. I mean, I would say comics/comics adjacent, where you talk about collectibles, action figures, CGCs, all that kind of stuff. It's got to occupy. I mean, YouTube videos, watching, the 30 Easter egg moments or hidden things in XYZ Spider-Man movie or whatever. It's got to occupy at least 40% of my day every day. At least
I,
40%.
yeah, I think I'm a little higher. I think just because I'm producing the podcast on a more regular basis and putting it all together, it's got to be though like 75% of my day is comics, because I'm editing a comic book podcast. I'm reading a magazine from 20 years ago about comic book news. And then every time I go to the bathroom, I got to pick my reading material. All right? Michael does not approve.
So what he's saying, folks, is his comics are covered in matter.
Oh, it's a pristine, clean environment. But my family will tell you, Dad, you spend a lot of time in the
It's
bathroom.
not a
I got great
9.8 grade.
But yeah, like
It's funny.
there's
I mean,
so much
between
to be involved in, right? When it comes to comics, like you say, it could be on your phone. Like my Twitter is pretty much comics Twitter. That's what or not, just any social media, but like, with the ones where you can
yeah,
block and say, I don't like this, I don't like that. Like everything in my feeds is related to comics for the most part. And then when I'm on my own, if I'm not, rocking out to Kiss, or I'm not, thinking about some 80s or 90s cartoon that I want to revisit or whatever, like it's always comes back to comics in some way for me. I mean, especially just the amount of room they take
all right.
up, right? So you run into them, and like, I should probably read these again.
Now that we're talking about this, I'm going to change my number to about 55% of my day is probably comics or comics adjacent, between looking at AI videos of reimaginings of Batman, or, just scrolling on my phone and looking at, behind the scenes or teasers, or, oh God, I must spend,
Yeah.
when I'm on the
there's
train,
so
I'm on the
much
train
that
4 hours a
more
day
than
watching
us.
videos.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than half my day. Yes, I would say, okay,
Yeah.
now that
Well,
I
let's be honest,
amend it.
right? The real life stuff we're fitting in around our comics thoughts.
Yeah. Just don't let our families know that more of our day is occupied by comics than them.
Luckily, they don't want to watch this, so for them, yeah, they're not
No, they don't.
understanding that. But I think like
Has your wife ever watched you on podcast? Has she ever watched you before?
I will show her clips occasionally, and she's like, "Okay, that's enough. Yeah, I get it."
But I don't think my wife has watched one clip of mine. She goes, I can't watch it. And I'm like, why? We need subscribers, people. Our own wives won't watch us.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough. But I do want to say about that too. One of the other great things that builds up, around our community is we get a lot of, DMs, we get private messages, there's the public comments, and then there's the people who reach out. And it is so awesome to be able to have those kind of extra channels to talk to people. A lot of people are trying to help us find stuff for the archives. Like we have something on the way right now that I'm so excited to share. I can't wait. But there's other people who are just like, hey, what issues do you need? I got a whole run of Toy Fair. I got a whole run of Wizard. I'm ready to sell. Just tell me what you need. So I'm sending lists back and forth. We're finding, variant covers or whatever it is we need, better, quality copies of what we've been using as reader copies and all that kind of stuff. But also some people just want to tell you how much they enjoy the conversation, how much they enjoy the work. This is stuff that we would want to say to our favorite comic creators. And, in a very, very tiny way, we're getting to hear from people that appreciate our brand of geekiness, or at least our ability to bring the nostalgia forward, once again for them and enjoy it. So it's wonderful that I feel like we're seeing the better side of comics fandom than maybe sometimes is out there. You can find the bad in everything, and we've invited the good, and it's come our way, and I'm grateful for that.
So I feel the same way, and I'm gonna cut. I have a question. I'm gonna cut back in prior to that.
Okay.
Now, remember when we were kids, right? And you wanted to find, get an autograph of your favorite celebrity. Like, I remember being in the Bo Jackson fan club, and he mailed me an autograph. Right? I feel like since the boom of comic conventions and these celebrities and artists and ever can monetize their signatures now, there's no more of the fan club anymore, right? You can't go and find the Tom Holland fan club. Hey, I want to write a letter and say how much I appreciate you. Can you send me a signed pic? That doesn't exist anymore, and I feel like that's a bummer. Our kids can't write to their favorite celebrity heroes or whatever to get the autograph we could get, writing to the fan club anymore. Did you ever do that as a kid? Write to any kind of collector fan club of some sort?
I definitely did. It's one of those things, like nowadays it's just, if you can get your favorite celebrity to follow you, then that's a big accomplishment. Like you matter enough in their circle, or you maybe, go on their social media accounts and that's how you're part of their fan club or whatever. For me, what I did back in the day, I mean, of course, it started with just celebrity crushes I had. So I would mail into the Tiffany Amber Thiessen fan club.
Young Adam reading Teen Beat magazine.
Dude, I had Teen Beat and Tiger Beat all over my walls as an 11-year-old, 10-year-old. I loved all my celebrities. Yes, I totally read it. New Kids on the Block, DJ from Full House, Candace Cameron, whoever it was. But yeah, so Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Xena, the Lucy Lawless fan club, and I would get the sign, they're pretty signed, but I would get the headshot that they would send out, their publicity photo from them. Even going so far, fictional character, but The Shadow. When the Shadow movie came out in 1994, I joined the official Shadow fan club. I got my packets each month that had a newsletter. I got a signed photo of the Shadow and all these things, So I definitely, there was an excitement there. Again, number one, just getting a physical thing in the mail also, right? But yeah, it's just, it's not done these days. It's all digital, and it's can you have that interaction with the person online somehow that you admire? Which is great for comics, too. We get to see so many creators, and they will provide their commentary, or we can reach out to them and ask questions, and they'll answer, whoever, Eric Larson especially. He'll respond pretty much to anything you send him, which is awesome. Not for us. Cool. We're always kind of messing up when we talk to Eric Larson, but...
He's like, what magazine are you guys talking about? I don't remember that magazine. What are you talking about?
Who cares? Who cares? I think he literally said that when we interviewed him. He's like, who cares about that? We'll just go back to that. But for those who never heard our Eric Larson interview, that was the worst interview we ever did. Not because of him. I just feel like we just didn't know how to approach him. We didn't know what the angle was to talk to Eric Larson about his career. The only time he was really kind of happy to talk about us was when he talked about when he was doing the Ninja Turtles comics. But other than that, he's like, why are you asking me that? What? No, I don't care.
Oh God, that was so awkward. I felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was that's our lowest moment of the podcast. For sure.
And it was one of those don't meet your heroes kind of moment.
Yeah.
It's oh boy.
I mean, that was the problem. I don't think he's either of our heroes. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so anyway, I mean, as we close out, final tangent. How about I just want to put a shout out to the Tangent universe of DC Comics. Do you remember this at all, Michael?
No, I don't know this.
Okay, this is something I never knew existed that we did cover on the podcast back in the day, but I love, again, in an era, I don't know if it was like desperation because sales were low or whatever, but they let Dan Jurgens essentially like pitch his ideas for what if there was an alternate DC universe. So the Flash is like a teenage girl who gets the powers, and she's got like a suit.
We did talk about. I remember this. Yes, I remember this. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so all that kind of stuff, like, and it just like mixing up the concepts, and it was almost like Stan Lee doing the DC comics, but within DC with their own creators saying, let's reimagine them. This is what they would be. And they did like 2 waves of those books. And I just thought they were so cool. Like, I'm sad that was not a universe that seemed to have caught on. Even you feel like one of the characters would have been like a fan favorite and would have got their own series, like Spider-Girl or something did. But it didn't happen. Yeah. So I love those. When we getting back to Wild Swings, that was a wild swing that I could really appreciate, even though it totally wasn't on my radar when it happened. So
that would be cool to see that again. I bet it would take off today. I feel like it was probably some of these things just aren't the right time, you know. But listen, this was a lot of fun. I enjoy this little conversation we had here today. This was cool.
Yes. So if you guys liked it out there, if you want, just to have us relax and go stream of consciousness, we certainly can. We can come in with the, different topics that you suggest. But yeah, we just wanted to throw this out there just as a possibility. Don't worry, Wizards is not going away. We will continue to cover every issue of Wizard Magazine. We will cover the specials. We will cover the spin-offs. We will give you Toy Fairs, the podcast, on Patreon every month at patreon.com/Wizards Comics. There, whether it's toys, whether it's comics, one of these days we will do the Inquest episode. We just need to find the right people. Who wants to talk to us about Inquest? Who is super obsessed with all the collectible card games back in the day? That's like one of the few from the 90s things that we have not covered just yet. It went into the 2000s, but I'm just saying, during its original run, we didn't really get into Inquest in the timeline on Wizards. So we'll see.
So let me ask you a question. What issue number are we up to now in the actual main podcast?
So we're approaching now issue 132. So that is kind of like end of summer 2002 is what we're dealing with. So it's Spider-Man movie. Sam
essentially, we've got a little more than 100 issues remaining. So you've got us for probably at least another 5 years.
Well, that's the question is, in the early days of the podcast, we did so many bonus episodes and super cinema episodes, and we were mixing it up a lot. If we just went pure only the magazine, we could knock it out of maybe 2-3 years. We were still a weekly podcast after all.
If we're doing 2 issues a month, that's 24 issues a year. So that's at least 2.5 years of just the actual comic without the other tangent stuff we do all the time.
Yeah, so,
at least.
Because we break it up into 2 episodes, right? We have a main episode, we have a half episode, but it's especially just 2 episodes about the same issue. So we bring it to you the best way we can, the most entertaining way we can. But thank you for checking out this episode.
He's gonna do it till he's 90, guys.
I'm ready. As long as I can still barely open a page of Wizard and read it. So, but yeah, it's all good. Thank you for being here. And just let us know. Give us some comments, geeks, wherever you're seeing this. If it's on YouTube, if it's on your social media feed and you see it go up, you listen to it, drop a comment in the social of your choice. And we're always open to suggestions as well. What do you like about it? Or if you just say, stick with the standard format, okay. But every once in a while, maybe we'll pepper these in if there's something on our minds. All right. But until
like
next
and
time.
subscribe on YouTube and everything else.
Yeah. There we go.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's all good.
I cut you off, sorry.
I was trying to think if we need to have a different sign-off for this one, since it's not an official podcast.
Until the next tangent, guys. Oh, God, that was funny. Yeah, I got one. I go cool. Yeah. So here we go. So until our next tangent, folks. We'll see you in the pages of Wizard Magazine. Bye for now.
All right.
Okay, good. All right, let's stop. Where's my mouse? Oh god, that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun.